It's the Randy Karraker Show on STL Sports Central, presented by DraftKings, where the crown is yours. You see Matthew Rocchio, Randy Karraker here. Hope you're doing well. And Matthew, interesting news out of the general managers meetings in Las Vegas. The headline in the sports at STLtoday.com, a story written by Derek Gould. The headline writer writes, Brendan Donovan among the most coveted hitters in trade talks. Indeed, Derek got this quote from one source who described how more than half the teams in the majors would like to trade for Brendan Donovan, and joked how there should be 22 or more calling the Cardinals. So it appears the Cardinals have an extremely valuable commodity, a guy that was an all-star last year, that guy that can do a lot of different things. And perhaps the Cardinals will be able to find a couple of pitchers. Hopefully there will be a little bit of a bidding war if indeed they do decide to move Donovan. Hopefully there will be a bidding war and they'll be able to wind up with a couple of starting pitchers. Derek started his piece by talking about J.J. Piccolo, the general manager of the Royals, who said, right now, this is a quote, right now, we don't have somebody who can play infield and right field, and that's something we've got to look at. If we had somebody who could go from the infield to the outfield, that's very, very beneficial. So it sure seems like there is a market out there, maybe a pretty substantial market for Brendan Donovan.
Yeah, 4 teams connected in one way or another by Derek Gould. You know, you mentioned the Dodgers had past interest in Brendan Donovan. The New York Yankees apparently were searching around him at the trade deadline. And then the 2 new teams, relatively new, because we talked about Jeff Passan linking Brendan Donovan to the Guardians yesterday. Mm-hmm. But now we have the Royals jumping in. And there's some very interesting quotes and anecdotes about some moves that the Royals have made in the last year, including trading some pitchers for a catcher and how important that was for the Padres. That kind of all loops in all the trade talk now with the Cardinals. Very, very solid writing there by Gould. If you're not checking out the article yet on STL Today, you should, because if you're a Cardinals fan, it's going to give you a lot of perspective and context about what's going on right now.
And obviously the Cardinals, if they do move Donovan, are confident that J.J. Weatherholt is going to be their second baseman. And the big thing is, as Chaim Bloom mentioned to us last week when he was on the show with us, Matthew, he said that they need to get multiple pitchers. He pointed out, as everybody does, that you can never have enough starting pitching. But at the moment, if you don't include the start that was made by Leahy at the end of the season, and you do conclude that the Cardinals are going to trade Sonny Gray, and I think it's safe for us to conclude that they're going to move him, well, that leaves 3 starting pitchers. That leaves Palante, who people aren't thrilled with. That leaves McGreevy, and that leaves Matthew Liberatore. So the Cardinals, in addition to going out and getting volume of pitching, they're going to have to get quantity of pitching, but they're going to have to get some quality too that's at a major league level. They can't go out and trade for a AA guy and a guy who's projected to spend the year at AAA. When they trade somebody with the value of Brendan Donovan, my opinion, they're going to have to get a guy that's already in the major leagues or major league ready that you can count on starting for 2026. And they're going to have to get somebody that they can have, as Chaim called it, warehoused at AAA for the inevitable injuries that you're going to have in your starting rotation.
The comment there at the very bottom of the Derek Gould article mentioned a starting pitcher and somebody on the back end. Mm-hmm. I'm with you that they just need bodies. Do you think maybe that pushes to the possibility of both Palante? Oh, no, because if they're both in the bullpen, you don't need them. Obviously, one of those is going to be the starter. But I think maybe, to your point, it would be better if they could maybe flip the roles of Leahy and Palante, put Leahy in the starting rotation, but having the flexibility to not have to start Andre Palante once every 5 games. I think that'd be a nice thing going forward. He was a really good bullpen pitcher. I think he's a solid pitcher. The people who want to give up on him are crazy.
Yeah,
but
and
maybe
Chaim Bloom is not one of those people, fortunately.
That's fair. That's good to hear.
Yeah, he will. Andre Palante is going to go to spring training as a starter. Now, he might not end spring training as a starter, but he's going to spring training as a starting pitcher. So those 4, you don't have enough guys. if you get rid of Andre Palante, and if you hate him, that means you probably aren't going to get much for him either, right? So either you have him as a potential starter, or you're going to have him in the bullpen. But then I need to know, if you trade Sonny Gray and you've got Palante and you don't want him to start games, so now you're looking at Liberatore, McGreevy, and Leahy. Who else starts? That's my question.
Whoever you break off in the Sonny Gray trade,
Well, that's what, or in the Donovan trade, right?
or in the Donovan trade, which it's looking much more likely based on every piece of reporting here. There's sometimes you got to read between the lines, and just the way that Derek's writing this, and if you read Katie Wu on The Athletic in their roundup everything right now, it feels likely. It feels like a pitcher. I'm already pretty deep in the Guardians and Royals depth chart at this point, trying to figure out who makes sense. The classic question I think you always need to ask in this scenario when you're putting together trade questions: who says no first? And when you read Derek Gould's piece, he does a really good job of framing how difficult it's going to be for other teams to be the first team to say no. Because everything that Brendan Donovan has, he's cost controlled, he's cheap, he hits for contact, he plays defense, he offers positional versatility. And really, the positional versatility isn't just about the between the white lines positional versatility. When you listen or you look at the quotes that Derek's getting from these other GMs and things, it's talking about how the positional versatility gives you flexibility in your roster building and what you can do this winter. So, I mean, everything makes him such a high value trade commodity right now. That's why the trade makes sense. And that's why I think they could get a solid pitcher here.
Yeah, I think that they'll be able to get hopefully a major league guy and then a minor league guy too. They just need to have enough people to get through, and then they have to protect their prospects too, because you don't want to expose people like Doyle and Matthews too quickly to the major leagues. Maybe they'll be great, but to use the term that I've heard from the Cardinals, that they like their minor leaguers to bleed a little bit at the minor league level, to deal with adversity and come through on the other side. And I would be surprised if Doyle would be brought up to the Cardinals this year before he has a chance to go through a couple of starts where he has to battle. If he's dominant for the first 5 starts that he has in the minors, I don't think that's going to matter to the Cardinals. I think what they want to do is see him come out on the other side after dealing with some adversity, because he didn't have to deal with an awful lot of adversity at Tennessee. A guy like Quinn Matthews, he had to bleed a little in the minors last year. And I think the Cardinals like the fact that he had to deal with some adversity. He had to pitch through some pain. And they want somebody on their team that they get for Brendan Donovan that's a starter that has already had to deal with that stuff. And I don't think that that's a bad approach to take. We've seen a lot of dominant minor league players, Jordan Walker, who never had to deal with adversity in the minors and then were brought up and they got broken pretty quickly.
Terrible, Randy. We get a couple chats here. Rob Allen, of all the stupid moves, everything that I listed, which again, I stole from Derek Gould, read him at stltoday.com right now, points to Brendan Donovan being at the absolute highest value of his personal trade asset, present, and also the Cardinals roster. This is the best chance to acquire new talent. And if you're not going to win in the time where he's cheap, then it makes sense to move him. I know Cardinals fans love him. There's a lot of good reasons to love him. I love watching Brendan Donovan play baseball. But you just have to be realistic, and this gets back to what I said a couple days ago. This is asset management. It's cold-blooded. It sucks, but it's a fact of the game.
And you're right. You have to take the emotion out of it, because I love Brendan Donovan too, and I spent most of the year saying that the Cardinals need to keep him. But there's a couple of things at play here now. The first thing is you're going to trade from your depth. the Cardinals are not going to go most of next season without J.J. Weatherholt. What position does J.J. Weatherholt play best? Shortstop. Well, the Cardinals have a Gold Glove shortstop. Where else can J.J. Weatherholt play? Second base. What position does Brendan Donovan play? He plays second base. Where do the Cardinals have depth offensively? Left-handed hitters. Well, one left-handed hitter is Brendan Donovan. Another just won a Silver Slugger. He can play first or left field for you, and Alec Burleson. Another one is Nolan Gorman. He may or may not go, but he's got the most power potential of the others. And then the other one is injured, and that's Lars Nootbaar, who had the surgery on his heels. So the Cardinals have two tradable commodities because they aren't trading Weatherholt and they aren't trading Burleson. So they have a couple of trade, and obviously Nootbaar's hurt. So you have a couple of tradable commodities in Nolan Gorman, who probably doesn't have as much value as an all-star who's won a Gold Glove and has been a Silver Slugger finalist. You also have needs, and you don't win without pitching. So while it might look like a stupid move, for me, you trade from depth and you add to places where you have needs. And the most depth the Cardinals have right now, quality depth to get quality back, is Brendan Donovan, who would become a redundant player with Weatherholt here if Weatherholt is, as everybody that I've talked to expects him to be, a great major leaguer. And then you bring in some starting pitching because, as we've already noted, Matthew, the Cardinals right now, if they trade Sonny Gray, and I have every reason to believe they will, they have 3 starting pitchers on their major league roster.
Is it wrong that I feel more comfortable in the bubble?
So that
is that bad that I feel more comfortable in the
No.
bubble? I feel more comfortable up here for some reason. I can't figure it out.
You know, you're used to the bubble. I get it.
I'm used to the bubble.
That's like, like Emsinger always said, it's if you've got a guy that's spent his entire career as a number 3 hitter, you hit him number 3. If you've got a guy that spent his basically podcast career in a bubble, you don't put him side by side. You put him in the bubble where he's comfortable.
This is where we've been screwing up. Bob Brunn, Royals have a couple of very nice right-handed pitchers in their minor league system, and I know they are looking to hold on to their major league roster. Here's my thing. Based on the comments in this Gould article, he's mentioning having 8 or 9 pitchers to trade from. They had really 6 starters last year. Then they had Brian Burgett and Stephen Kolek, who they got on the market when they traded their catcher to the Padres. I feel like what the quotes I'm seeing here from the Royals, and please tell me if you disagree with how you're reading this, I feel like some of the major league pitchers are on the board for a Brendan Donovan if we're talking about a Royals trade.
I would think so, yeah. And what you're looking more for is significant control. The guys that are under control for 3 or 4 years, because the Cardinals, yes, they do have young pitchers on the horizon, but they also want to have a level of stability when they make a move. When you're trading somebody who has the value that Brendan Donovan has, you should get a pretty good return, and you should get a guy that is going to be with your team for a while. One thing that's interesting about the Royals is that they aren't overloaded with top 30 pitching prospects that are major league ready. Their top pitching prospect, their number 6 overall, is in A-ball. They do have their 7th rated prospect is in AAA and has an ETA of 2026, but then they've got several more A-ball pitchers before you find a guy that has an ETA of 2026. They don't have a ton of prospects, but as you mentioned, Matthew, they do have some guys that have been at the major league level, and they got some pitchers from San Diego last year when they traded for Mean. So maybe that's what you're looking at, is some pitchers that have been with them for the last couple of years where they've had a level of success.
Sorry, I am going to share a screen here because one of the fun things I can do when I'm at home and I have my whole desktop in front of me is that we can just take a look at the baseball reference page for the Kansas City Royals, and everyone gets to take a nice little peek at what the hell we're talking. So let's shift around the cameras here, and let's do this whole thing. So make it a little bit bigger, and then we can zoom in.
Okay. So number one, I think we're zeroed in on guys that have been starting pitchers, right? We don't want to turn a relief pitcher into a starter.
Yes.
Is that a safe assumption?
And that's one of my things when you look at some of these pitchers, because we talked about the trade that the Royals made. Ryan Bergert's one of those guys, but this is a guy who's like career high is 70 innings. So, I mean, Stephen Kolek was the other guy, and you can see him down here, 1.9 ERA in the 5 starts he had for the Royals, 28 years old. I think that's the low level of what we're talking about if we're talking about a Brendan Donovan trade. I legitimately think this Chris Bubich, Cole Reagans, I think that's a reasonable thing because of all the versatility and all the talent that we just talked about with Brendan Donovan. I think Noah Cameron's probably shooting the moon a little bit if we're talking about expectations and what the Royals would want to give up.
Wouldn't you feel the same way about Cole Reagans?
I think it's a little bit different because yeah, you're probably right.
I mean, this is a guy that he'll pitch next year at 28.
You know what?
He's left-handed. His major league success has been outstanding. His first year when he got traded for Aroldis Chapman, he has a 2.64. He strikes out a bunch of guys. He struck out 89 and 71 and 2/3 his first year with the Royals. In his first full year, he strikes out 223 and 186 and a third. Was injured last year. I would be very surprised if Kansas City would be willing to move him.
Yeah, I screwed up Bubich's and Reagan's free agency time because Reagan's has another 2 years. Bubich has just 1. So right there, you're playing the contract length and control game. So I don't know. Maybe Kolek is the guy that we should be looking at.
Yeah, maybe Kolek is the guy. That makes sense from a Cardinals standpoint. But that being said, I think that he is enough of a question mark. Not that he's not going to be good. I'm not saying that, but I think that he is enough of a question mark that if you're the Cardinals, you would have to get something in addition to him if you're giving up Brendan Donovan. And that might be the minor league guy that we're talking about because so you get a major leaguer and a minor leaguer, and then if they want a low level prospect back, they can do that. But I just don't think that the Cardinals are in a position now to be trading Brendan Donovan for one guy. I think they need to get multiple guys for him, multiple pitchers for Brendan Donovan.
And this is why I'm interested in your opinion a lot, Randy, because Craig Lewis says Donovan should bring at minimum a number 2 starter. And this is the tricky thing with these trade things is I'm am I shooting too low? Is Craig Lewis shooting too high? Because a minimum a number 2 starter seems like, again, play the game. Who says no first? You call these 4 teams and ask for a number 2 level starter, other than the Dodgers, because they could have multiple of them. I think everyone else says no.
Yeah, for Brendan Donovan?
Yeah, for one of their number 2 starters. I think everyone else says no.
Yeah, and that's the value of starting pitching. It's much easier to find a second baseman or even a versatile player and a really good versatile player. It's easier to find that guy than it is to find a quality starting pitcher. Let's just take a look at, as an example, the number 2 guy last year for the Guardians. You're probably going Gavin Williams 1, Tanner Bybee 2. Bybee gives you 182 innings, strikes out 162, 4.24 earned run average. That's their number 2. I don't think that Cleveland would give up Bybee straight up for Donovan. I think that the Cardinals would have to throw a little bit more in. And as I mentioned, I think the Cardinals would want to get another pitcher back because Bybee's 26. His control, I think does he have 2 years in? I think he might have 4 years of control left. Let me double check here for you. His service time is he's got 2 years left. But I don't think this is a guy that was starting game 1 of the playoffs for the Guardians. So I just don't think that they're going to be trading their number 2. And everybody's number 2 is different. I mean, look at our situation with the number 2 starter. So if you can get a number 2 starter for the Cardinals in this deal, maybe that's what you're talking about, then that's reasonable. But if you're looking for a number 2 starter from a team that was in the playoffs last year, I don't think that's realistic.
Yeah, there's no way on God's green earth. Tanner Bybee, 26 years old, and he's under control through 2030. There's no way in hell. I mean, just talent level. At the same time, one other thing we got to get to, and good job by Wilson. He just sent me this. So before I get into this, I was going to turn the chat a little bit, but let me read this because this is from The Athletic that just popped up. To be clear, there's a path in which the Royals hold on to Bubic. Their rotation is a strength, and Bubic is among the reasons why. Trading him, however, presents a logical way to net the kind of return that improves their lineup, particularly, perhaps in the outfield, an area where Kansas City wants an upgrade. More specifically, the Royals eye a left fielder so Joe Caglianone can play right field. So right there in The Athletic, good job by Wilson passing that along. That, a guy who did pop up, a little bit of a smaller amount of control, but he was an all-star last year, but all his numbers say that could be just kind of a splash in the pan. Maybe the Royals and Cardinals could find a deal there.
Yeah, and the Royals extended Seth Lugo before the deadline last year, so they like him. They still have Michael Wacha under contract, and he's actually performed very well for the Royals. They have Lorenzen under contract, even though he's 33, and like we mentioned earlier, they still have Reagans. Bubic might be an expendable part for them. If they want to go with Cameron, who started 24, and it's Wacha, Lugo, Lorenzen, Cameron, Reagans, and then they can find that replacement, that depth guy, and move a guy like Bubic, who could be a number 2 or 3 starter for the Cardinals, then you might have something. And Bubic, by the way, had a good year, and he's had a good career. So that would not be a bad start for the Cardinals at all. I think that's an intriguing move.
But to your point, if Bubic is the main part of the trade from the Royals, how much or how high of the value is the second player they have to throw on for you or the Cardinals in this situation not to say no first?
Well, maybe you get a bullpen piece. Maybe you get, as we mentioned earlier, their 7th or 8th prospect. Maybe you get a guy that was a fringe starter for them last year. Maybe you do get a guy like Kolick, who, and then the Cardinals would throw something else in. They had a lot of people, even young guys, that started games for them last year in Kansas City. I would hope that you could get 2 starters out of Brendan Donovan. And it doesn't have to be the Royals. You could go to the Guardians, and nobody knows the Guardians better than Rob Cerfolio, the Cardinals assistant general manager, and Larry Day, the Cardinals farm director. And you can ask them and say, okay, trust your guys and say, we know that we're getting quality out of this because our guys drafted and developed these players from Cleveland. You have a pretty good idea of what the guys in Los Angeles are and what they are capable of being. So I think there's enough teams out there that the Cardinals can feel comfortable that they could get 2 starters for Donovan. If, as that executive that told Derek, there are half of the teams in baseball that are interested in Brendan Donovan, wouldn't you think one of them would be willing to give up a middle of the rotation starter like a Bubic and then another pitcher? It seems like if there's competition for the services of the player, that you can get a lot for the player.
And that's why a chat like Bill Downton's kind of surprises me. Sorry, but Donovan is not going to get you 2 major league starters. We agree with that. We're not saying that. Nothing in the reporting saying 2 major league starters. We're talking about 1 major league starter, and then if it's a guy like Bubic who doesn't have a ton of control, only has 1 really good season as a major league baseball pitcher, we're just saying that if you're the Cardinals, there's got to be a little bit more added on to that deal from the Royals' perspective, because to everything we're just reading, Major League Baseball GMs are valuing Brendan Donovan at a very high level.
Right. And I value him at a high level.
Yeah.
And the Cardinals, I know, value him at a high level. That is not a guy that you give away for a back of the rotation. For example, if somebody had the equivalent of Andre Palante, who made 28, 29 starts in 2025. If somebody is offering the equivalent of Andre Palante, I don't trade Brendan Donovan for that. I've got to get a legitimate middle of the rotation guy, and then either a depth piece, a younger guy, a guy with potential, a guy that maybe I know about that they don't. In the case of the Guardians, I've got to get another piece that has a chance at least to have some value. And to that point about Donovan not going to get you 2 major league starters, maybe not in 2026, but down the line, again, this is a guy that was a Silver Slugger finalist. He's won a Gold Glove. He's been an all-star. Everybody in baseball knows that he's a glue guy. He's a winner. You want him on your team. He's right in the prime of his career. He's going to turn 30 years old. There are a lot of positives about Brendan Donovan. Positives that at this stage of their existence, the Cardinals really can't utilize because he's a player that's ready to win right now, and they aren't an organization that's ready to win right now. And, oh, by the way, they want to get J.J. Weatherholt into their lineup. So you can either plug him in left and maybe bench Alec Burleson because Herrera is going to be your DH. Why would you want to bench Burleson? Unfortunately for Brendan Donovan, because of the presence of Weatherholt and because of the injury to Nootbaar, Brendan Donovan becomes a redundant piece for you because you're going to play Weatherholt at second. And if you could trade Nootbaar and then move J.J. Weatherholt around, whether it's to third or to the outfield, there's a lot of different things. You could use him as more of a utility, more of a Tommy Edman super sub kind of guy. That's not going to happen now. And by the way, the Cardinals might, I don't know how they're going to handle third base. They think that under the circumstances that for them, Nolan Arenado was described to me as a perfectly good player. Not at the price, but he's a perfectly good player. If they move Donovan and they move Gorman, then it seems like they would have to keep Nolan Arenado. If they move Gorman or Donovan and move Arenado, seems like they have to have Gorman to play third. At some point here, if they don't trade Donovan, Matthew, then you're going to have to trade both Gorman and Arenado, and Donovan's going to have to be your third baseman. Or Weatherholt's going to have to be your third baseman, and Donovan stays at second.
It's not the worst case. And Keith Adam brings up his argument. Fellas, it's not about emotion. A couple of days ago, you just explained why Donovan is perfect for a rebuilding time, but they would trade him. That is stupid. I don't agree that he's the perfect player for a rebuilding team. If he was willing to sign an extension, I'm not saying he's not, but the fact that the extension isn't coming and arbitration is looming again, that's why, for me, that's the final straw. The facts
Matthew,
that his...
Let's try to ask ourselves a question here and see if we can answer Keith's question, or at least respond to his comment. What type of team is Brendan Donovan not perfect for? He's a team player. He takes care of his teammates. He's versatile. He gives great effort. He's a good hitter. He's a good defender. What team would he not be perfect for? He's, in my opinion, rebuilding team. He's 29 years old. Old team, he's a veteran. He can play offense. He can play defense. He can play multiple positions. And oh, by the way, he's still not making a ton of money. What team in baseball would he not be perfect for?
Yeah, you're right. They're not mutually exclusive things. He can be perfect for a rebuilding team, and a trade can make sense.
Oh, absolutely. So, and the Cardinals, again, have the redundancy. Now, they have to make sure that this sucker hits. If they're going to trade Brendan Donovan, then the trade has to work. And I am of the opinion that, and I have a ton of faith in Chaim Bloom and his staff. I'm just of the opinion that the Cardinals would be better off in dealing with teams that they have a more intimate knowledge of. And that would include, and by the way, they do have a knowledge, an extent of the Dodgers, because the Cardinals director of performance came from the Dodgers. But they know the Guardians best. They know the Seattle Mariners very well. I don't know what their knowledge level is. They've got a lot of scouts that have kept an eye on the guys on the Royals, but and I don't know how much that knowledge means to the Cardinals because they have so much video and they have so many different aspects of knowledge about players, whether it's video analytics, whatever. But I hope the Cardinals know a ton about the people that they're getting, including how they are in the clubhouse and how they are from a competitive standpoint. You don't want a guy, all due respect to Brett Cecil, you don't want a guy who spends all of his time sitting in his locker playing video games, maybe at the expense of playing baseball. I just don't think that's what the Cardinals need. They need highly competitive, highly functioning players at this point.
Keith then asks, why trade him? So why trade him? Because you admit he's a good player.
So
trade.
Your choice is this. So you could move Weatherholt.
Sell high.
Right? You can do
Buy
that.
low.
Yeah. You can trade Weatherholt if you want, or if you can find somebody to take Arenado and then you trade Gorman. Those guys don't have the value that Brendan Donovan has. They aren't going to bring back the starting pitching that you need, and Brendan Donovan can bring that pitching back. So what you're looking for is the best of both worlds. You're looking for trading from your strength, trading from your depth so that you still have a good player when you trade a good player, but then you also want to add to your weakness. And I can tell you very definitively right now, not having talked to a single person from another major league team, you are not going to get a middle of the rotation starter if you trade Nolan Arenado or Nolan Gorman for that guy. It's just not going to happen.
And something else, if you read the STL Today's story by Derek Gould, which is fantastic, and if you read the wrap-up on The Athletic that has a blurb about the Cardinals from Katie Wu, the word extension never gets mentioned. Like, they're not even throwing out the possibility of the trade being thrown off or the talk about Donovan being thrown off with them coming to a deal before arbitration. Maybe I'm just honed in on the extension being a huge part of his future. Shocking that his contract it would be a huge part of the future. But the fact that that gets mentioned as no tangent at all, that tells me I think the trade's coming.
Well, and I think if the Cardinals would, as our example displayed, if the Cardinals would move him to third, if he would be on their team in spring training, then I would be very surprised if they wouldn't explore an extension with him. And no young player signs extensions at this time of year. It just doesn't happen.
That's fair.
So if it's going to happen, I would think that it'd happen probably in spring training or early next season.
Rather trade him for a high upside position player and two decent distant pitching prospects since pitchers are so fragile. I understand the thought process there, but I think the issue with adding a big name bat anywhere is what position are they going to play?
Right now, you've got Burleson in left. They want to see more of Victor Scott II in center. They want to see more of Walker in right. They're going to have a third baseman, whether it's Arenado or Gorman. Wynn is going to be their shortstop. We've already talked about second base, probably Weatherholt. Contreras is going to be their first baseman. They've got 5 million catchers. So I'm with you. I wonder where that high-level position player is. And I am not a big fan of looking for that as you call it, Bryce, a distant pitching prospect. Many times those guys wind up being lottery tickets. And if they hit, great. The Cubs got 4 of those for Yu Darvish, and none of them worked out. And the Cardinals have a bunch of those guys that they really like at the lower levels. Actually, they're above the lower levels. When you talk about that Springfield team that won the championship this year, they have 4 left-handed starting pitchers that are all pretty good. And that's in addition to Liam Doyle and Quinn Matthews and Zerpe at some point and Roby at some point. The Cardinals have distant pitchers. They just don't know how good they're going to be. And if you acquire them from another organization, you still don't know how good they're going to be. The closer they get to the majors, the better idea you have about what you're going to be able to get out of them as a major league pitcher. And sometimes, even when they're great at AAA, they don't wind up being great in the majors. So if I can get a guy, Bubic is a really good example here. Maybe not the guy, but a guy that's pitched a couple, 3 years at the major league level, has had a level of success, has dealt with injury, he's dealt with adversity. You know what you're getting. I guess that's the best way that I can put this. If I'm going to trade Brendan Donovan, I know what I'm getting out of Brendan Donovan. If I'm going to trade him for a pitcher, I want to have him be a pitcher that I know what I'm going to get out of. And I don't think that's unreasonable at all. Also not unreasonable is the fact that we're going to have legalized sports gambling coming to Missouri right here in Missouri. It's going to be arriving on December 1st. And all you need to do is download the DraftKings Sportsbook app today. If you're a new Mizzou customer, then you can place a $5 bet on November 17th, unlock $300 in bonus bets. That's right. Create your DraftKings Sportsbook account on November 17th. And then when Missouri gets legalized gambling on December 1st, you are in. DraftKings Sportsbook has everything you need to have the best experience. You're going to get live in-game betting. That means that you can bet on the next pitch if you so desire. Or if you want to bet on the team that's going to score first in the next quarter, you can do that. They have lightning fast payouts. They have endless ways to get in on the action, all right from your phone. And when DraftKings officially goes live in Missouri, you're going to be betting with the Sportsbook app trusted by millions of people. Safe, secure, with fast money withdrawals. Just use that promo code that you see on your screen right there, STL Sports. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app now and grab $300 in bonus bets with just a $5 bet when they go live December 1st. Again, download the app and use that promo code STL Sports in partnership with DraftKings Sportsbook.
Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. In New York, call 877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY at 467-369. In Connecticut, help is available for problem gambling. Call 888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org. Please play responsibly. On behalf of Boot Hill Casino and Resort in Kansas, 21 and over. Age and eligibility varies by jurisdiction. Void in Ontario. Bet must win to receive reward. Bonus bets expire 168 hours after issuance. For additional terms and responsible gaming resources, see dkng.co/audio.
All right, Matthew, I've got something for you. If you want to do the deal with Cleveland, in addition to Luis Ortiz, now Emmanuel Clase has pled not guilty, so they're not going to go to jail for 65 years. So why not just get Ortiz and Clase? Donovan.
Why are you so determined on this show for teams that we cover to hire and or sign the most fraudulent and felonious, allegedly in some cases, coaches, players, and executives that America could possibly scrounge up? Like, are you and Mac Rhodes going to put together
an
an
Art another suggestion deal besides these two dynamic pitchers? Come on.
Do I have any other?
See?
Much like you with the college football coaches earlier this week.
Oh,
I don't have the names, but I'm sure
Urban
we can
Meyer?
find them.
Yeah. I just yeah, we can find them. Well, do they win?
Terrible.
I guess. All right.
Well, the problem with Clase is he does win, just not in the arena you really want him to. Mama jumps into the trade conversation. A team like the Mariners, who don't want to spend any money but extend their window another year or two, seems like where you could get the best return.
That makes a ton of sense. They do have a wealth, apparently, of young starting pitching, and they have a wealth of young starting pitching at the major league level as well. And if they lose Eugenio Suarez, they'll need a third baseman, and they already need a second baseman. So there are a lot of things to like about a deal with the Mariners. And, oh, by the way, Matt Pierpont, Cardinals director of minor league pitching, is a guy that was over in the Mariners organization and knows their young pitching. So, yeah, I think that's a really good idea. So,
we're getting some other text. Mary Likens. You're not Bernie, so this might be a little unfair, but she does say, I do not understand Bernie's belief in Bloom. So we had an interview with Chaim Bloom. Go check it out on STL Sports Central YouTube. I'm not saying you do. I don't want to put words in your mouth, but Do you have belief in Bloom? And maybe explain why you do to Mary if you do.
I do on a couple of levels. Number one, I've gotten to know him a little bit, and he's a really smart guy. Number two, I think he's absorbed the intelligence, the baseball IQ of the people that he's worked with, like Andrew Friedman with the Dodgers, Eric Neander with the Rays, and some of the other people. He did a really good job with the Rays in player procurement when they went to the playoffs. Then, to me, the most notable thing is that he was given 2 years in Boston to rebuild their system and make their program less expensive. And he was forced to trade Mookie Betts, made the trade. But this past season, when the Red Sox started the season, they had three of the top 12 and 4 of the top 20 prospects in all of baseball. It was Roman Anthony, number 1. It was Christian Campbell, I think, number 8. I think Marcelo Mayer was 12. And then Wilyer Abreu was number 20. All procured during the Chaim Bloom administration in Boston. So he either evaluates talent or he hires people that evaluate talent. And we saw it with Boston. They were a playoff team that was pretty much put together by Chaim Bloom. So I have confidence in his ability to evaluate talent. I have a confidence in his ability to evaluate the Cardinals' own talent, which they didn't do several times with the Rosarena and Garcia. And I think that he's going to be more open-minded about dealing with multiple teams. Thought it was really interesting. And wouldn't it be something if the Cardinals would make their first deal under Bloom with the Guardians? But the deals that John Mozeliak made, out of all the deals that he made between December of 2007, when he traded Jim Edmonds for David Freese, and the end of this season, he made far and away more deals with the Guardians and the Blue Jays than any others. He had his friends, his teams that he dealt with. For example, I don't think that John Mozeliak ever made a deal with the Giants when he was in charge of operations for the Cardinals. I don't know if he ever made one with the Pirates either. Might have made one, I'm not sure. But Mozeliak didn't have a wide breadth of teams that he talked to or dealt with. And I know for a fact that Chaim Bloom does. He has a ton of people that respect him within baseball. And if he goes to a Pirates or a Giants or another team that hasn't dealt with the Cardinals in a long time, they'll pick up the phone. And so there are multiple reasons that I have confidence in him. And he's also cutting edge. One of the things the Cardinals didn't do in their previous administration was find out why they were getting passed up, because they really didn't realize they were being passed up. And they went, and I've mentioned this before, but I'll say it again for those of you that never heard it. They went from hiring Tony La Russa in 1996 from the A's to hiring Chaim Bloom in 2024, who had been with the Red Sox. They went from 96 to 24 without hiring another person from another baseball organization with a substantial voice. Now, they did bring in Jeff Luhnow from the business industry. He came from like petstore.com. They brought in Gersh from the outside, from the non-baseball realm. But the people that they brought in that had a real voice, that were listened to in the organization, all came from the Cardinal organization. And that included all the managers. Matheny had been here. Schilt had been here. Obviously, Ollie Marmol had been here. All the assistant general managers, everybody. And there's something to be said for promoting from within and having loyalty to the people that have done good work for you. But when things start to go awry and you start to get passed up, to me, you have to ask some people elsewhere in the industry, why am I getting passed up? And I think Chaim Bloom will do that if the Cardinals aren't cutting edge, and the Cardinals didn't before. So those are just a couple of the reasons that I think that he will be an excellent director of baseball ops for the Cardinals. Fair?
I think that was a pretty good answer. We do get this from Gina Glass, who says, you can bring in all the young talent in the world. That doesn't make any difference if you don't have management that can develop it. The Cardinals don't. Randy, I want you to answer your what you think from that. But I also kind of want you to loop in the reaction. Some people are having a negative reaction to Clabe's comment about wanting to see Marmol in the playoffs. after the only time we've seen Marmol in the playoffs. And I think that's kind of what Gino's getting to.
Okay. Yeah. Well, there's a couple of things here. Number one, if you've watched over the course of the last 4 years, I think you can, if you're rational about it, you can see that Marmol has grown as a manager. His use of the bullpen this year was outstanding. His use of the bullpen in the playoffs in 22, I questioned it. I think we were all reasonable to question it, but he's very self-aware. He doesn't have blind spots about his weaknesses, and he tries to correct his weaknesses. And I think he's done a really good job of that. And I think the other thing that he does, if you think about a guy that I believe is a good general manager or a good manager in Rob Thompson in Philadelphia, and Nick Castellanos saying, yeah, he doesn't really talk to me. I don't communicate with him. There is not a player on the Cardinal roster that Oli Marmol doesn't communicate with on a regular basis. And that's another thing they were not good at. You remember what happened when Contreras came in, and I think Oli learned from that and has become a much better communicator with his players. So I think that if the Cardinals would get into the playoffs in 26 or 27 or 28, if he's still their manager then, I think that they will be in much better hands than they were under the same guy in 2022. There's a lot to be said for experience. And the 4 years that he's had, 22, 23, 24, 25, have been invaluable for Oli. And I think he is better than he was in 2022. I hope that answers your question. Do I think that he's the best manager in the sport? No, but I think that he's good enough. And the other thing is, when people like Joe Torre were winning, and Bobby Cox was winning, and Tony La Russa was winning, and Whitey Herzog was winning, where did they make their money? You become a great manager by winning in the playoffs. And the only way you can win in the playoffs is to make the playoffs. And that's the next objective for Oli. He's got to have a team that makes the playoffs. By the way, I think in the last couple of years, if you look at last year's team winning 83, and then this year's team being in the hunt in the hunt for 500 until the very end, I think for this group, when you have Michaelis on your staff all year, Fetty on your staff for most of the year, limitations in how much you can use your bullpen, spent the last 2 months of the season after trading Helsley, Maton, Matz, your top three relievers. You traded at the deadline and didn't have them, and then you never got production from Walker. Well, you got a month. You got a month of production out of Gorman. You got a month of production out of Victor Scott II. You didn't get much production at all out of Nolan Arenado. And you still wound up winning, 78 games? That might have been a pretty good managing job, actually, under the circumstances.
You're going to get
my opinion
crucified for saying that. One other thing from that reporting by Derek
feel
Gould.
free to disagree. People can feel free to disagree, but I need to know why they disagree, because if they have different numbers than I do about the people that I just referenced, then we can talk about it. But the numbers are there. The numbers for Gorman and Walker and Scott and Michaelis and Fetty and the relievers after those three got traded, those numbers are all there. So if you're going to dispute it, I need to know why.
There we go. That's kind of always the case in the show. We have no problem with you calling us stupid and disagreeing with us, but bring the argument. Keith Adams is asking an interesting question. Fellas, besides the Cardinals possibly paying a lot of Gray's contract, what could a Gray-Gorman combo trade bring? That's an interesting thought.
Yeah, and it's going to be dependent upon what the Cardinals will pay of Gray's contract. So let's say right off the bat, the Cardinals tell the other team, okay, we'll pay the $5 million buyout after 26. And then if the other team picks up the option for 26, then the Cardinals don't have to pay the buyout. So we'll start there. We'll start at $35 million cash for a guy that's 36 years old and admittedly has been pretty darn good. Number 2, number 3 guy. And I think you can reasonably expect that. So let's assume that you get the Sonny Gray that you had in 2025 for $35 million. The Cardinals will probably have to pay 15 of that. So you're looking at 20. So it's a $20 million middle of the rotation guy and a guy with a ton of power potential. What could you reasonably expect that to bring? Well, you got to find a team. Number one, it's going to be a select few teams that are willing to pay the $20 million. And then you got to have a team that needs a third baseman / DH that has the power potential. So then you got to look around and find out the teams that have that. And if they have a pitcher, I would think that, Matthew, we're looking probably again at the same thing that we're looking at from Donovan in terms of starting pitcher, not the quality. I would think you're probably looking at a back end starter.
I was just thinking, find the team that when they trade for Gray, they can bump out their fifth starter to you as part of the trade.
Well, okay. Let me give you a team, and I don't know if they fit, but Houston loses Framber Valdez, okay, as a free agent. They were interested in Arenado last year. They have money. Their general manager said, hey, our owner is always going for it. And they still have the Crawford boxes. So rather than getting a guy like Arenado, what about getting a left-handed hitter like Gorman? And they're a very strong analytical organization. And plug in Paredes. Well, the problem is they got Christian. I forgot about them getting Correa to play third. Okay. That kind of messes up my thought. Okay. They aren't going to get him. So Houston is not an option then. Darn it.
Damn it.
I need a better option. But what you're looking for is a team that needs a third baseman / a left-handed hitting third baseman / DH and starting pitcher, but is also willing to spend money. Dodgers aren't one of those teams. No. Mariners are not going to be one of those teams. Rangers definitely aren't one of those teams. Man, I don't know where you find that team that needs that particular player. Maybe the Giants. So the Giants are going to lose Verlander, although we apparently Tony Vitello wants Scherzer there. But they also need a little bit more offense. And if they don't have complete confidence yet in Bryce Eldridge being their DH, maybe you could look at a team like that.
How about a team that got one home run and a 76 OPS plus from their nominal starting third baseman?
Okay, that is
the team you already mentioned on this podcast. That is the Seattle Mariners.
Seattle doesn't need the starting pitcher.
That's true. But my thing is, what if they could? I guess there's no reason not to keep rolling with all these guys.
Now,
what is Emerson Hancock really?
Let me give you one. If the Red Sox don't bring Bregman back, the Red Sox could use another starting pitcher. They're willing to spend money, and they would need a third baseman. I could see that. Okay. Now, what you need to do is, I don't know what the Red Sox look like in terms of young starting pitching. I'm guessing they're not trading Garrett Crochet. But that is a team that could definitely use a Sonny Gray type starter and might be able to use a third baseman / DH.
Richard Fitz, righty, 6'3", 230, isn't a free agent until 2032, and he just finished his second year where he started 10 games for them on the back half. I'm saying that's a young arm.
Yep. They also have this other hard throwing right-hander named Jordan Hicks. And I guess the question you have to ask with them, number one, and we don't know how hard they're going to pursue bringing Bregman back. But the other thing about the Red Sox is they do have Marcelo Mayor to play third base. So it's a puzzle. And Chaim Bloom and his staff have their hands full in trying to figure this out. But at least we're getting some news with Brendan Donovan apparently drawing interest from multiple teams. One general manager telling Derek Gould at STLtoday.com, or one executive at least, half the teams in the league are interested, and it should be about 22 that are interested in Brendan Donovan. Hopefully you get like 20 of them that make an offer, and you can sift through the best one.
Jason Oliver, Jock of the Era. You got silence and blockbuster moves. Mosaic, mixed messaging, and some good moves and many bad. I'm curious about the Bloom era. Jesus.
Yeah, me too. I think it's going to be fun. So there were a few with Walt that but everybody knew that they were talking to the A's about McGuire when they made that deal. Walt had told me that they were.
I was going to say
it wasn't a trade when they got acquired Chris Carpenter. He told us that they were going to try to sign him. So, but obviously some bold trades, a different era completely, different time, different place. And what Walt did, which was genius and incredible, is impossible to accomplish in 2025.
Tomorrow, Randy, my plan, because he's a much better hot stove host to do a show with you than I am. I think we're going to have you and Joe Roderick maybe do a little bit of a show tomorrow, because what we haven't gotten to, and the show's winding down here, is that Derek Gould also mentioned that a catcher trade could be likely, because again, they're going to have to add Bernal to the 40. So there's a lot of things there. I don't think it's likely. You don't think it's likely. Bernie Miklasz just did a video today on STL Sports Central. He certainly doesn't think it's likely, but I also want to bat around what a potential. I'm going to force you to come up with what you would trade Alec Burleson or Ivan Herrera for. I know it's not, doesn't make sense, but people are throwing it out there. And then by this time tomorrow, for all we know, there's more nuggets on this Donnie stuff. So I think you and Joe are going to bat around a little baseball tomorrow.
Okay, good. Who would I trade Ivan Herrera for?
Don't answer yet.
I will not. We'll save it for tomorrow. That's a good promo, though.
We got
great job as always, sir. Thank you.
Can we do one other thing?
Yeah, sure.
Okay, so the MLS just agreed to change their schedule. And so what I did was I downloaded the announcement video off Twitter that they just posted. Mm-hmm. And I think I just am going to play it right here on the show and react to it. How about that?
Okay, I like it.
All right, let's do it.
Welcome to a new era for Major League Soccer. This evolution begins with a landmark shift in the competition calendar, aligning the MLS season with the top leagues around the world. The new calendar will see the 34-game MLS regular season kick off in July and run through Decision Day in April, with MLS Cup in May. Importantly, MLS will take a winter break that will see fewer games played in December, no games played in January, before resuming action with a select number of games in February. In the transition year, MLS will play a condensed regular season running from February through April, with the Audi MLS Cup playoffs in May. That season will crown an MLS Cup champion, as well as qualify teams for the CONCACAF Champions Cup. This landmark shift in the calendar will align MLS with the top leagues in the world, creates premier placement for an uninterrupted Audi MLS Cup playoffs, and better position the league in the global transfer market. This is a transformational moment for Major League Soccer, and the beginning of a new era for our sport in North America. Welcome to MLS 3.0.
All right, Randy. I need the reaction to those changes from the casual soccer fan.
Well, number one, why do they want to go right head to head with the UFL? I don't know. I think, in all seriousness, I think this is brilliant. Not playing games in January and very few in February is brilliant. Might as well, and I guess they'll cut back some in December too. I think it's a fantastic move on the part of MLS, and I think it makes it easier and smoother. Kind of fits like a glove when we pursue Mbappe.
Oh, okay. I'm not even going to address that part. Them saying it starts in July hits a little differently because the idea that it wasn't going to start until like late August, like I was like right when football would start, seemed like an odd decision. For me, though, I just don't know how I feel about taking a 6-week break in the middle of the season. It's just seems like the opposite that every other league has marketed themselves, which is like momentum, narrative, storylines. Being a 365 league is all been a thing.
And their fans. Like, I don't want to go to a City game in January or February.
No, neither do I.
At home.
That's the thing. It's the best move when you have to make this decision. But I'm just saying overall is the obviously they've been weighing the pros and cons, but it just seems like an odd move to just take off for 6 weeks without games.
If you're going to cut it down and have lesser games in December, January, February, have each team play 2 games a month, and there will be some teams that don't like this, but have all the home games be in warmer climates, in Dallas, in Houston, in Atlanta, in do they still play in the Dome in Minneapolis?
No, it's open air.
So, but then you've got Miami, you've got the 2 LAs, you've got plenty of opportunities to play in warm weather sites and play 2 games in those months. So the whole league plays 2 games a month in those months. But so for those 6 games, it's a 6-game road trip for St. Louis City SC. They don't play at home. And the reason that somebody might not like it is because if you're Miami, then you might have fewer home games down the stretch of your season. Miami, LA's, Texas teams, Atlanta, whatever. But overall, I like the idea. I think I would tweak it a little bit, but I like the idea.
Yeah, I think the condensed season is going to be weird as hell. But, I mean, listen, they're trying everything they can.
How's my idea? So you keep training. You keep training.
I will.
It's basically a 6-game trip, but every game is played in a reasonable climate.
Yeah, I like it. You could be really strategic with the scheduling. There's a couple other things I haven't seen whether or not they approved breaking up the league into 2 divisions, which would also change the schedule. Would be interesting to see how that works with more regionalized scheduling, and then you're in an area where you have to schedule outside of the regions. The other thing is that Apple TV Plus MLS subscription is done. If you have Apple TV, you can watch all the MLS stuff starting next season. So you don't have to have a new special subscription or anything, which that is legitimately the best thing that just came out of today, because taking down the barrier to watch the games as every other league gets harder to watch, that's a good move.
Really good move. Okay, so there 30 teams or 31 in the league right now?
There should be 30.
30, okay. So I'm just trying to come up with 15 warm weather climates. So you've got Atlanta, you've got Austin. Charlotte's warm enough that you could play January, February, right? Let's just count Charlotte for fun. Let's see. Dallas would be fine. Houston would be good. That's 5. LA, Miami, Nashville. Let's see. Okay, now Orlando. Okay.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5,
San
6,
Diego?
7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. There's 12 teams that are south of St. Louis, and I'm including San Jose, which technically might be north, but it's different. So there's 12 teams south of St. Louis.
You can play in Vancouver in those months, though.
Oh, Vancouver, Portland, Seattle. You're right. I'm sorry. You're right. Let's up it to 15. Bam, half the league.
There you go. There's half the league. So let's text Don Garber tonight and say we like it, but we want to make the announcement and we want to do it with an American accent.
Yeah. As soon as that happened, I was worried.
You knew that I was going to be offended, didn't you?
I knew you were going to be offended. Yes.
So
they're going to call you MAG after this.
I can't remember. I can't imagine like Rob Manfred coming on and saying, we're going to change our schedule. I just don't see it. So great work as always, Matthew.
Thank you very much, sir.
So tomorrow, Bernie in the morning. Does Bernie drop in the morning for us?
Bernie drops right around noon.
Okay. So my conversation with Bernie Miklas, Joe Roderick tomorrow with me, and we'll talk a little hot stove as we get you ready for the weekend. And then don't forget, on the weekend, we've also got some football talk getting ready for Mizzou and Mississippi State. And then we'll get ready for the NFL Sunday. 2 awesome games on Sunday, by the way. Actually 3, if you include the Sunday night game. But you've got Seattle and the Rams. You've got the Chiefs and the Broncos. And then the Sunday night game is Detroit and Philadelphia. So you got 3 great games on Sunday. Be fun.
And we got plenty of college basketball. I know we haven't talked about them. We need to I need to remedy this. Illinois is going to be a Sweet 16 team, if not Elite 8 Final 4. And so a lot of basketball to watch.
And stuff. They never win in the postseason. They never win. But she picked them to win, and they lost in the first round.
So. It's because they had that one Final Four when she was a child, and anything that happens good when you're a child.
She was in college. She was in college when they went to the championship game.
That's a good point.
So, but here's another thing: I'm not going to forgive Josh Schertz and Slew for running it up on my Lions, my Lindenwood Lions.
Did you hear Schertz after the game?
No.
I think he's like, I have 10 guys who can play. Like, I'm not trying to run it up. These are the guys I have. And I thought that was hilarious.
Yeah, it's pretty funny. That's good. Yeah. I hope he does that against VCU.
I hope he does it against GCU.
Oh yeah, really. No doubt. When's that game?
Tomorrow night, 7. Oh no, it's Thursday. It is on Saturday night at 7 p.m. Tickets are still available. Get in where you fit in.
Sounds good. All right, brother. Great job as always. Great job by Wilson getting us on the air. I'm Randy, and we are presented by DraftKings, where the crown is yours, and we'll see you next time. Always have your notifications set for STL Sports Central. So long. Cool.